grateful nation. Please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved one's honorable and faithful service.
At this time, we're going to begin our service today with the acceptance of God's judgment upon us. I ask the mourners to come forward. It's customary, symbolic garment having been torn from us, having lost our loved one. So too, we rend the garment. We make the blessing. If you may repeat after me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam dayan ha'emes. Amen.
Amen.
Blessed art thou, Lord our God, true judge. At this time, the mourners tear the garment and over the heart for a parent, symbolic of our loss. Ashrei haish, happy is the one who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor sat in the company of the scornful. Rather, that one's delight is in the law of the Lord, meditating in God's Torah day and night. And that one will be like a tree planted by streams of water, that yields its fruit in season, whose leaf will not wither, and whatever that one does prospers. Not so the wicked, who are like chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked shall not survive judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord loves the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked is doomed. My name is Joseph Kirsch. I had the privilege of knowing Mr. Louis Wolinsky, as well as his wife, Zichrona Lebracha, Dorothy Devora, at Menorah Park, where I am one of the rabbis on staff. It was a privilege to know him and his extended family. His sister, Edith Zichrona Lebracha, was a prominent resident at Menorah Park. And so we've come together to pay our respects, to show our love and our loss, and grieve together, and to bring our beloved to his resting place. It's customary to recite Psalm 23. I'll recite it in Hebrew and then translate in English. Mizmor l'David, Adonai roi, lo echsor bin oisteshe yarbitzeni ay amay menucha sinaleini nafshi shoyvev yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shimo kam ki yelech b'geit hamoves lo iroro ki ato himodi shivtecha umeshantecha heima yenachamuni taroich lefonai shulchan neged soiroi Dishantov Hashem en Roshi Dishantov Hashem en Roshi Koi Sirevaya Ach Toi Vachesed Yedefuni Yedefuni kol yemei chayai Veshavti beveis Adonai liorech yamim. A Song of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God causes me to lie down in lush pastures. God leads me beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and guides me in righteous paths for God's name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your scepter and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in full view of my adversaries. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for length of days. Eliezer Ben Shlomo HaKohen, Zichron Livracha, Mr. Louis Wolinsky, often called upon as the Kohen at Menorah Park Synagogue, and I'm sure in all the many other synagogues that he was involved with, certainly Taylor Road Synagogue, which was a lifelong endeavor of his. He was a lifelong resident of Cleveland Heights, and he left us at the age of 96. The son of the late Samuel, which is really in Hebrew Shlomo, and Anna Wolinsky. He was predeceased by his siblings Leo and Edith. Was a graduate of John Hay High School and served in North Africa and Italy as a technical sergeant in the 15th Air Force during World War II. Lou and his family were longtime members of Taylor Road Synagogue, where he served in many official positions. He was an expert wallpaper hanger, and at his passing had been a member of the Decorators Union, the local 128, since 1948. He was married to his dear Dorothy Peters of Elyria for 67 years at the time of her passing in 2013. Lou was survived by his children, Judith Wolinsky, Mark Wolinsky, and Susan Goodman, and beloved grandchildren, Ethan Goodman, Jacob and Joshua Wolinsky, and a brother, Jack Wolinsky of Portland, and many nieces and nephews. His father, Sam Shloime, was a very gifted man, a man with much ability. His mother, Chana Manchuk, as well. They were both originally from the old country, born in Belarus, outside of Minsk, maybe Brest-Litovsk. They got married in the old country and lost 2 children there. Sam came to Cleveland. Lewis's father came to Cleveland with his father, Lewis's grandfather and grandmother, Abraham and Jenny, and Sam siblings, Morris, Pearl, and Lewis. Sam was the oldest. Lewis's father was the oldest. Cousins paid for Anna to come over after Sam, his father, had already come over. So his mom came over later after World War I in 1918. They had cousins here in Cleveland, the Rutmans, Rubinskys. And Lewis's father sold bread to make a living for Parnassa. He had a horse and wagon. He sold bread. He sold shmatis. They say Howie says he also sold schnapps. He had a secret compartment in the wagon. And he would sell whiskey and schnapps as well to try to make ends meet. You know, schnapps is not really a secular thing in the shul. It's a l'chaim. It's a worship. So I think it was some whiskey were even exempted during Prohibition. I believe the worship things used for worship. So that would allow us the schnapps. Louis Eliezer was born in 1921 to his parents, and then came Leo, his brother, in 1923. Jack Lahavdil Ben Chaim was born after, and then Lahavdil Ben Chaim Edith Zichron Levracha was born in 1925. And Louis continued to help his father when he was born. He did what he could as he grew to help his father, to help the family. He sold papers on the corner at age 9 or 10. So he was the oldest child. He felt a certain responsibility, Louis had felt, to help take care of the other children. Seems that much as his father had been the oldest child, he too was the oldest child. His grandfather, Avram, worked very hard at the Cotton Club factory. He worked in these high boots and took care of things at the Cotton Club factory. And I guess he enjoyed visiting his Zaidi, his pa there sometimes. And the family always were close together. They had double houses, double homes. It's kind of like a family unity. And as Lewis's children said yesterday, it also helped them to acclimate to the new land. You know, there was a language barrier. Of course, they spoke Yiddish fluently, but the English language was a bit of a barrier. So this way, by living together, the younger generation can help the older generation. And Sam, Lewis's father, Shloime, was a chazan. He was a cantor. He did that to help the family as well. So he would travel to different places to lead the davening. He went to Youngstown, Dayton, Akron. And when Sam went, he was accompanied by Louis, Jack, Leo, and a neighbor. If somebody wants to tell us exactly who the neighbor was, that would clarify it. But we know there's this beautiful picture of Cantor Shloime surrounded with his quartet. And people would come and be moved by his prayers, and the young men accompanying him in the synagogue. Mark he suspects that his grandfather's grandfather was a chazan, because a beautiful voice seems to run in the family. Louis continued in John Hay. He was more looking toward a vocational school, and he went into accounting. He continued then at Ohio University. And then Nate and perhaps Blanche Herzig introduced Louis to his future wife, Dorothy Devora. That was, of course, an exciting time for him. She was from the Peters family in Illyria, and her parents were Isaac, Yitzchak Peters, and Esther Miriam being a Babich. Esther Miriam was one of 11 surviving children. I believe there had been 13 and she was one of her 11 children. And Louis would drive to Elyria to go out with her, spend time with her. When he became, of course, drafted in 1943, so he began his service in North Africa, staying for a number of years, completing his service in Italy. And during that time, Eliezer and Devorah, so Louis and Dorothy wrote letters back and forth. He was working on an airfield, and he was part of really the paper squad, ordering the parts for the airplanes, discerning what they needed, keeping them safe. And he did not return until 6 months after the war. He and his wife were wed on September 15th, 1946, by Rabbi Rube. And he took an office job, but he didn't really like the office job. So he went on to begin hanging paper with his father, Sam, who had gone into the wallpaper hanging business. And Sam was always a master at hanging wallpaper. In my younger years, I tried it. It's not easy to match it up. I can attest to that. So, and yet he could, even complex archways, the family says, he had some way of matching up everything. And even at age 80, Sam was blessed to continue working. He did the rooms in Howie and Evie's house. In his 80s, he was able to do the wallpapering. With time, Sam and Louis went their own ways to work independently, and he had a crew and worked very hard to make a living that way for the family. He had a beautiful new car that he had purchased in 1954, a Pontiac that was hunter green. The family remembers on one of their Sunday outings to Elyria, there was an accident. The car somehow slammed into a car that was parked, but it was right in front of an insurance agency, and they were able to somehow get the claim processed right away. They saw a divine hand there. And after that, they held off on new cars for a while, and Louis would go through many cars. He had some with a push-button transmission, and frustrated with the inefficient mechanics of those years. The technology was not up to par, of course. We all remember overheated cars on the roadside in the 60s. We can imagine what the earlier cars were like. But eventually, the next new car Louis got was a 1960 Ford Falcon, and that served him well. Judith learned how to drive in that in 1964, actually in a fire brick red station wagon. She learned how to drive, and the children, of course, the cars were, for the family, very much first and foremost to go on trips and to go places and to accomplish what they needed to. In July of 1949, Judith was born. Her Hebrew name, Bracha Yehudis, most beautiful name. Bracha, of course, blessing. Yehudis, the heroine of Hanukkah, and the essence of the Jewish people, the Yehudi, because our goal is, so to speak, to perhaps rectify Adam's mistake when Adam turned to God, and God had given him a wife, and God said to Adam, what happened? Why did you eat from the tree? So rather than take responsibility, he said, the woman that you gave me, she gave me to eat from the tree. And Rashi points out that was ingratitude, because God had given him a wife, and rather than express appreciation, he showed ingratitude. And so our mission in this world is to show God gratitude. And of course, Judith is from Hod, thanks, the Yehudi, always expressing our appreciation to God. Then in June of 1952, Mark was born, Isser Meir, also Hanukkah, right? Meir, bringing light, right around Hanukkah time, coming up. And then April 1958, Susan came into the world, and she's Chana Fega. Chana, also around Hanukkah time now, right? Chana and her 7 sons. A lot of Hanukkah in the family, a lot of light, a lot of gratitude. At all the family gatherings, it was custom that Grandpa Sam would sing the Bracha HaMotzi, lead the service, and Mark's bar mitzvah was at Davis Caterers. A lot of the family gatherings were there at Davis Caterers. It was, of course, Edith, that was her husband's catering place, and I'm proud to say I had my Sheva Brachas there as well. So it was, of course, it was and continues to be. We still order from Davis. Caterers at Menorah Park continues to be a source of inspiration and Jewish custom. Both Louis and Mark gifted voices, and were able to use them in worship at the synagogue, at many simchas and weddings that they had, either at Davis Caterers or other places. Mark would go to Taylor Road Synagogue Sunday School, and he would love going to Davis Caterers to stop for a long pretzel and a salami stick on the way home. Those are some of the fond memories. And Louis, their father, would wake up early, and early Sunday morning he would get up and ask each child what they'd like from Lax and Mandel. And he would find his way over to Lax and Mandel to get them some fresh, delicious treat. I remember when Edith would talk with me at Menorah Park about her wonderful family, she would talk about the Greenwald farm and sometime there. And Mark remembers the family having spent some time at the Jewish bed and breakfast in Paynesville, I think, right? The Greenwald farm. That was a place for family celebration. Judith was married in 1973 at Taylor Road Synagogue. Susan and Buddy in 1986 at Taylor Road Synagogue. There was Rabbi Zlatin and Rabbi Lilyville. And their son, Ethan Isaac, of course, was named Isaac after Isaac Peters, was born in January of 1991. Mark married Yingli December of 2006, and Jacob and Joshua born in 2007 and 2009 grandchildren. Louis's interests were the Taylor Road Synagogue Men's Bowling League, the Poker Club, which always had a very strong cigar smell, and participants in the Poker Club were the Goldberg family, the Presents, the Grunbergers, the Fixler family, and Louis, as we said, was a very devoted member of Taylor Road Synagogue. He was the treasurer and the vice president. He spent his time trying to help the shul and being a good leader for the synagogue. He enjoyed relaxing sometimes with a paper. He enjoyed music, Percy Faith, Lena Horne, Herb Alpert, the Tijuana Brass. He didn't like Frank Sinatra, nor Tony Bennett, or Dean Martin. But he had a big record collection. He enjoyed many Jewish records, 78s, of course, cantorial records. And Edith would tell the family that Louis really played the violin very well as a child, and that was a source of inspiration to her. We know the violin is really an instrument of the soul, so expressive, so delicate, so sensitive, and Louis was really talented at playing the violin as a child. He was always a humble man. He really did understate himself, and he tried to be there every way that he could for the family. He took the family on many vacations: Virginia Beach, Atlantic City, Mammoth Cave in Kentucky. He didn't like flying. Louis didn't like flying, despite the fact that he was involved with the Air Force and the airplanes during the war. But wherever he could, he drove. Of course, he did go to Europe on a plane. He would wake up the family. Everybody would get up early, 4 o'clock in the morning. They would get up early to beat the rush hour traffic and to get going on their trip. He was extremely devoted to care for his beloved Dorothy when she took ill. She was a resident at Menorah Park, and he would come to the Fairmount Pavilion, and Louis almost lived there. He was there from early in the day till after she would go to sleep, deeply devoted as well to all of his grandchildren. Judith is a professional photographer, and her father was really her salesman. He would market her pictures. He had a whole briefcase, tried to find clients, and was very proud of her talents. She may yet display some of her talents later today. I know that that was something we spoke about. And when we think about the family as a whole, I always have, emblazoned on my mind is that beautiful picture of Louis with his father and brothers, and his father's cloaked in the beautiful garb of a cantor, which is so meaningful, to bring prayer and song to Jews that were the far-flung Städtlich, not the big Cleveland, but the smaller communities, so that they could have a cantor, so they could be moved in prayers, brought closer to God. Lewis's yahrzeit will always be before Hanukkah, and Hanukkah really is a time of closeness to God, an exceptional time of closeness. I heard a beautiful Dvar Torah, Motzei Shabbos. I heard the Spinker Rebbe is visiting Cleveland, but I heard him say, every holiday has a name which describes the holiday. A Pesach is God skipped over, right? The angel of death skipped over the doorpost. God skipped over the doorpost, passed over. And Purim is the poor, the lots that Haman drew to try and find a day to destroy the Jews. So what is Hanukkah? What really is Hanukkah? The name Hanukkah, what does it mean? Chanu, they rested. Chav Hei on the 25th day, if you divide the word, or to rekindle to a renaissance of the temple. But what is the... So the rabbi explained the Greeks really took away so many meaningful things from us. They forbid circumcision. They forbid Rosh Chodesh, keeping our holidays, studying our Torah. What we had left was simply our closeness to God, our prayer. We had our prayer. And prayer is something that they could not take away. We had Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. We had that. And if you count those letters of the Shema Yisrael, they equal 25. And so with our love for God and our closeness to God in prayer, we were able to connect to the salvation, the miracle of Hanukkah, that the few were given the ability to conquer over the many. And so too, Lewis, through his endeavors, whether it was going with his father to bring people closer to God through prayer, or whether it was coming to Shul in Menorah Park, leading us in the prayers on the Torah as our Kohen, or whether he was strengthening the family on vacations, in other ways, it was something that can bring us all closer to God, to emulate and to remember. May his memory be a blessing. I know that his daughter, Susan, was going to say a few words.
It's not a few, it's a lot. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. Pay your respects. We all deeply, deeply appreciate your kind and caring words. 96 is a lot of years. Dad was charming and funny. He was also tough and opinionated and uncompromising. He was passionate about his family and loyal to friends and synagogue, and he represented the hardworking best of his generation. He liked his coffee black, his shirts one color, plaid, and felt equally comfortable in black socks and sandals as he did in white socks and sandals, much to the horror of 12-year-old me. He liked art shows and quilt shows and small-town museums. He was afraid to swim, but took us on beach vacations all the same. He loved country music, the real twangy, nasally stuff. And he and Mom made several trips to Nashville and to Branson, Missouri to enjoy all the hee-haw in person. On the opposite spectrum, he liked silly comedies like Laugh-In and Benny Hill and Monty Python. Dad had a great eye for design and helped Mom decide colors and patterns for her beautiful handmade quilts and aprons. He grew freakishly tall tomato plants every summer on East Fairfax, somehow anchoring them to the back of the house, using a ladder to climb up as they grew. He'd then pose for a picture at the end of the season with the plants towering high above his head. I never knew what fertilizer he used. He wasn't just a paper hanger all those years, but a true artist. He was a member, starting in 1948, of the Decorators Union, Local 128, and took tremendous pride in his papering craftsmanship, daring anyone to find the seams where two rolls would come together. And you never could. They blended flawlessly. He loved his parents, Sam and Anna, and his siblings, the late Leo and Edith, and his little brother, Jack, at only 93, lives in Portland, Oregon. He loved his country, serving in World War II as a technical sergeant in the 15th Air Force Repair Squadron in North Africa and southern Italy. I asked him once what his specific duties were, where the planes were maintained and repaired, and he told me he sewed on buttons. Don't know what that was all about, but I'm going to throw it out there and say Louis Wolinsky brought the war to a quicker end because of the service in that repair squadron. He loved Taylor Road Synagogue, where he proudly served on numerous boards and committees over the many, many years of membership, and was the best and loudest, I'm sure, bingo night MC they ever had. And he sure loved our mom. I found a diary she kept in 1946, and she wrote how he pursued her tirelessly, traveling back and forth between Cleveland and Elyria, until she finally agreed to marry him. She was beautiful. And they were married for 67 years when she passed. Even though things could get loud and intense, deep down we always knew he fiercely loved us kids and wanted the absolute best for us. And when Buddy and Yingli came along, Dad warmly welcomed them into the mix. But most of all, and best of all, he loved his grandsons, Ethan, Jacob, and Joshua. His face always lit up when they came to visit. He felt, and rightly so, that they are absolutely brilliant and handsome and talented. I hope they've inherited his strong determination, his confident independence, his ability to move forward through hardship, his passionate loyalty to family and friends, and his instincts for cultivating a bountiful tomato crop. 96 is a lot of years, and he filled them with a lot of love, Louis style. Thank you very much.
Words from the heart penetrate the heart. I acknowledge the presence of Rabbi Luria and Cantor Schiffman. Hope I'm not missing anyone. It's customary to rise for the Kel Mali prayer. El Mali Rachamim Shoichen Pameroim Hametzei Menucha Nechoino Ala Kanfei Ashechino B'mahai Elois Kedoshim U'Tohirim Kizoyar Harakia Mazirim Es Nishmas Eliezer ben Shlomo HaKohen Sheholach Li'olamoi Bavur Sha'anachnu Mispalim Baras Koras Nishmasoi Began Eden Tehei Menuchasoi Lochein Bal HaRachamim Yastireyo B'seisek Nafav Li'olamim V'yitzror B'yitzror Achayim Es Nishmasoi Adoinoi Hu Nachalosoi v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavai v'noimar Amen. God full of compassion who dwells on high, grant proper rest on the sheltering wings of your presence, in the lofty levels of the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the heavens, to the soul of Eliezer the son of Shlomo HaKohen, who has gone to his world, and for whose memory we pray. May his rest be in paradise. May the Master of Compassion bring him under the cover of God's wings, and bind his soul in the bond of life. May the Lord be his heritage, and may he rest on his resting place in peace. And let us respond, Amen. You may be seated. At this time, I just want to ask Mechila forgiveness from our departed. It's the overwhelming responsibility of honoring an individual such as yourself, a Kohen, descended from Aaron, HaKohen, the brother of Moses. Perhaps I slighted you in some way, or someone at Menorah Park. If we ever said anything inappropriately, please forgive us, ourselves, our community. We ask your forgiveness. May you be a Melitz Yosher. You should be an advocate for your family, for Klal Yisrael, for the Jewish people and the world. Yesterday, Mark was commenting about how fascinating it is to have a patriarch like Louis. Imagine, there's this scientist in Israel who not long ago, he was at the Holy Wall, the Kotel, and he saw Kohanim, priests, from all over the world gathered at the Kotel Hamaravi on Sukkot. And he said, we look so different. He happens to be a Kohen. I'm a Kohen and they're Kohanim, but here was a Yemenite Kohen with Yemenite features and another Kohen from a different part of the world, from all over the world. So he went and researched and discovered that there is a certain gene that is passed down from father to son, and call it maybe the Kohen gene. And he said, let's see if all these people really have that gene, and that they're all related from a common ancestor from over 3,000 years ago. And he took samples from the gums of all these people at the Holy Wall on the holiday, and sure enough, there was over a 96% accuracy rate that all these Kohanim who appear so different were all descended from one ancestor that lived over 3,000 years ago. And what the scientists said was it's a testimony to the high morality of our ancestors, because we all know the kahuna is passed from father to son. So if a woman had been with someone other than her husband, everyone would imagine the child is a Kohen, but it would have corrupted the pool. And if it was corrupted 1,000 or 2,000 years ago, it would be a much lower rate than 96%. And yet, the percent is over 96. And Mark said, he stunned me yesterday when he said, yes, I know the rabbi, I know the scientist, I had this test, and I'm from that pool of the Kohanim. Now, we didn't need the scientist to tell us about our morality, but just it's mesmerizing when we have a patriarch such as Louis amongst our midst that connects us to our past in such a rich way. How fortunate we were, and may we always remember him and try to emulate all of his attributes and stay close. And that's why we continue, we pay our respects at the cemetery, we go back, a yard site, the high holidays, we put a stone, we build a monument. We're taking our loved one deep into our hearts, trying to emulate them and continue in their ways. At this time, we would ask the pallbearers to come forward.